Well, that was underwhelming. To no surprise, Democrats and Republicans cannot get along. These grown people cannot get along. So the president had to step in and save the day. Except he ain't saved shit. Let's get into all four of these executive orders and kind of nitpick them and see what's good and what's bad about them. Also, let's discuss when the next stimulus check will actually come, because obviously it ain't here. So let's get into that as well. Be sure to stick around for all that and more. It is Crystal with the Cash Compass. All right, welcome back. I am here to teach you all the things that you should have learned in school about money, but for whatever reason, they forgot to mention it. Please be sure to subscribe because we talk about everything from personal finance to investing to the economy. Let's get into it. So we all got our first stimulus check around sometime in March, right? And since then, it has been nothing but chaos. I mean, there's been explosions. There's been millions of people unemployed every single week. Unemployment lines, food lines. A lot has developed. And for some reason, Congress is just on recess or on vacation, or they can't agree, or they're proposing 50 million stimulus checks, but not actually getting into the voting room and making real decisions, right? Then the president comes along and says, you know what? I've had enough of this. Let me put an executive order in. Excuse me? Why you didn't do this months ago? Okay, people was waiting, looking for more months ago, okay? It just kind of seems to be a lot of back and forth kind of games being played. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second, but it does seem like a whole charade. But at any rate, let's get into the details. So I think one thing that we can rejoice about is student loans being deferred until the end of the year. That is probably the biggest thing that I think is actually the most beneficial, because apparently it cannot really be challenged. They don't really need Congress to go ahead and make that a go. We can just kind of get that deferred for the rest of the year. As you can see here, student loan debt is a lot, okay? So it is stressful for people, and I do think this is going to be a dramatic help for those who maybe are employed, but they are underemployed. Or if they're unemployed, it gives you a break, right? One less bill to pay. And while they did cut unemployment, at least it's kind of somewhere in the middle between what the Republicans wanted and what the Democrats wanted, right? The Republicans wanted anywhere from $200 to $500 a month, and the Democrats wanted it to go to $600 a month through the rest of the year, okay? So this is kind of like somewhere in the middle. You're getting $400 a week, so it's kind of a dramatic cut, but it's not horrible like it was before. And while I do think it's unfortunate, because obviously getting a $200 a week pay cut is never nice, right? I do understand the need to kind of balance somewhere between helping people who are unemployed, but also giving incentive to people to actually go out there and look for work. But the problem is, ain't no work. I mean, people are not hiring the way they used to. People are still being very apprehensive. I don't know what's going on for your jobs. Maybe you guys can speak to that in the comments below, but you know, people's jobs are kind of pulling back on who they're hiring, and they're kind of just trying to wait till the dust settles and kind of, go from there. So right now, I think we're still kind of too in the thick of it to try to get people back into the workforce, because there aren't that many jobs for people. I mean, everybody who was employed cannot go back to their job. That's a guarantee, okay? Things are not open at the same capacity. So no matter what, for sure, we're going to have an unemployment problem for, the foreseeable future. He plans on funding this new unemployment by having the states who are already pretty much tapped out fund at least 25%. But the states don't actually have to. They could just opt out, okay? And he's saying, don't worry, we'll get it paid. But again, it makes no sense. This money, while it does kind of come out of nowhere, when you are creating money and injecting into the system, that always is going to have consequences, and the consequences are not pretty in the long run. We might not feel it right now because we don't have velocity of money. So money isn't really moving quickly through the economy right now because people are still kind of, for the most part, kind of locked up, right? And people are still deathly afraid. Even if the community is open, they're still being very cautious. So we don't have velocity of money. We haven't really been seeing that money move to the economy. So maybe we won't see hyperinflation or inflation to a dramatic extent now. But I can personally speak from my experiences and say that I have seen prices creep up already. Okay, so that can happen even more. And if you keep on printing even more money, it is going to get worse. And if I've lost you, watch this video up here. I go into great detail about how our money is created and all those kind of details. But it's important to note states cannot go bankrupt, okay? So you're going to make them pay this money. They've already been paying unemployment for all these weeks. What if they can't afford it? That means more jobs lost, because if they cannot go bankrupt, they're going to have to fire people and try to cut costs and increase their revenue, right? So maybe higher property taxes, maybe more taxes just in general at a state level, depending on where you're at. They'll have to do something in order to kind of get some money and generate some revenue, right? Because they cannot go bankrupt, at least as the law stands right now. So asking people who are already tapped out to pay even more is obviously problematic. All right, so now let's get into this payroll tax deferment debacle, okay? So for those who don't know, the payroll taxes are basically your Social Security and your Medicare. It's about 7.65, not even about, it is 7.65% of your wages. So, not a whole bunch of money. If we're going to go off of the median income in America, that would be roughly $100 every paycheck, right? So basically, by deferring this, he's in essence, kind of giving you $200 a month, okay, for the foreseeable future. If he gets elected, maybe he'll wipe it away for good. But again, politics, okay? So it's kind of messed up, right? Because it's like we've been hearing a whole bunch of news about stimulus checks. I know you guys have been seeing them. It's like every single week there's a new, more outrageous stimulus check. I just gave up on reporting on them because I felt like it was useless, right? Because they're not doing anything. But, we're getting ranges from like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, like all these different thousands, and then we end up at $200 a month, okay? And basically Trump is saying, if you elect me, I'll go ahead and get rid of those payroll taxes. But let's do the math here, okay? Let's just keep it clean and say he has 3 months, okay, before he gets into office again, right? So if we do the math on that, we will get $600 before he's actually re-elected, if that's what happens, okay? So he's basically trying to buy your votes with $600. Excuse me? The last check was $1,200. Like, if you're going to buy votes, buy the votes. 600 ain't going to cut it. Okay, do I hear 1,800? 2,000? Buy the votes if you're going to buy them. Don't try to tell people, oh yeah, like we promise we're going to get rid of this, we're going to do that. But it really doesn't amount to much if you do the math. Now, of course, if you earn more than $34,000, you might see more than, $200 a month. But basically, if you want it to amount to $1,200, well, then you will have to be making at least $62,000 to actually equal $1,200 before he gets elected. I might not even include that. I don't even know if I lost you guys, but stick with me. But yeah, you can't buy my vote with half the stimulus money. You gotta come a little bit harder than that, player. I just don't think that people really think about the numbers, and it doesn't really make sense, okay? 7.65% of your wages is not really a whole bunch of money. And just because he defers it doesn't mean that your employer actually has to give that money to you, right? Because it's kind of like up to your employer. They might be a little bit apprehensive in actually going ahead and giving you that money back, right? Because we don't know if it's actually going to be forgiven or, they'll kind of cancel it, like it's deferred. So why take that chance and spend that money if you're going to ask for it back 3 months from now? Most people are living paycheck to paycheck as it is. So imagine getting that little bit of extra boost, spending it whatever you can, and then they ask you for the money months later. Like that's problematic, okay? And while we're talking about problems, can I show y'all something real quick? Okay, this is the unfunded liabilities, okay? And as you can see, the unfunded liabilities for Social Security and Medicare alone are in the tens of trillions of dollars, as is. If we collect all the unfunded liabilities, you can see we are comfortably over $450,000 per citizen, okay? I talked about this in my other video. If you didn't watch that, I definitely think you should watch it up here. But that includes everybody, your newborn, okay? If you just gave birth yesterday, your baby owes almost $500,000. Where's that money gonna come from? And now you're gonna cut payroll taxes, so guess what? That comes to a screeching halt. Who's gonna pay for it, okay? That's gonna end up hurting people who need it the most. Like people who need Social Security, they're probably retired, they're older, they can't get into the workforce as they used to, or they actually need health benefits, especially during a pandemic, right? So why take from something that people desperately need? It makes no sense to me. And the rent moratoriums, don't even get excited about it because everything in there is a whole bunch of like cloud, smokes, and mirrors. I think he just kind of threw rent moratorium out there so people can kind of get excited. But when you really read it, it's kind of like, what are you saying? Like, you're not really telling us we can defer it. They're just like, let's see if, we might have to because of some sort of issues with, the pandemic and the crisis going on. Like, maybe we'll need to do that. Excuse me, you guys already thought you needed to do it when you did it, right? So continue doing it or just don't say anything about it. But again, this is just kind of baiting people and getting them excited just to kind of disappoint them because it's not enough money for the people. And if you're going to give all these money to corporations like that at the flick of a wrist, then I think you should give the people who you're supposed to be serving as a government, right? The government is supposed to come for the people first. So take care of your people first if you're going to actually print money and kind of blow the US dollar out of existence, in the future, in the long run, hopefully. But if you're going to do that, at least give the American people something instead of just always benefiting corporations who do nothing but kind of milk the money out of the company and then leave the people there for dead. All in all, everything that he has put into place, with the exception of the student loans, can be challenged. But I do think that it would be a problem if the Democrats wanted to say something about this, right? Because if you think about it, Trump is kind of smart guy, right? He's going to do this executive order. He comes in kind of like saving the day because people didn't have those unemployment checks, and now he's going to at least give them a little bit of something back, okay? So that looks good for him. If the Democrats sit there and say, oh, no, you can't do that, that's not right, that's going to look bad for the Democrats. And are you going to want to put Joe Biden in when you realize that his party don't even want you to get your unemployment money? I think not. I know I would be pissed. I know I would be like, all right, he's giving us unemployment. He's going ahead and cutting these payroll taxes for people who do have a job. I like that. And if people are going to try to take that money from you, you're not going to like that. So I think that he's in a pretty good position right now because he's kind of incentivizing people to vote for him. So ultimately, we'll see. I do have opinions on voting that I don't know if I want to share, but if you guys want to hear it, definitely let me know and I will make a video about it. So definitely let me know your thoughts about that. But that will do it. If you like this video, then please like this video and share with your friends. It really helps when you like the videos. It gets my face out there and it helps grow my channel. And it's free. So go ahead and do that for me. And if you have anything else going on, you know what I'm going to say. Go ahead and binge watch me. And until next time, keep your money up.